So, will Leon return this time in Resident Evil Requiem? Is Ethan Winters' story finally coming to an end? Will this game be open world? Will there be a multiplayer mode? Or is it going to be a solo horror experience? A lot of these details were recently revealed in a developer event. The hype and speculation around the game are massive. But in this video, we'll only focus on official confirmations, not on rumors or leaks. Since many people are confused about what's real, I thought of making an honest video that clearly explains everything. No fake news. So if you're a Resident Evil fan or just excited about the next horror blockbuster, make sure to stick around till the end, because today we're discussing everything we know about Resident Evil Requiem. Let's start with a bit of story background. Resident Evil Requiem is set 30 years after the deadly events of the original Raccoon City outbreak, where the Umbrella Corporation's illegal experiments turned the entire city into a nightmare filled with zombies and bioweapons. This is the same outbreak that fans saw in the Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3 remakes, where heroes like Leon, Claire, and Jill risked their lives to stop the horror. Back then, there was another important name, Alyssa Ashcroft, an investigative journalist who documented everything during the outbreak and tried to bring the truth to the public. Now, decades later, her daughter Grace Ashcroft is the main protagonist of Resident Evil Requiem. Yes, the developers have officially confirmed that Grace will take the lead, not Leon. Although, there is still some confusion around that, which we'll talk about later. Grace plays the role of a new FBI agent who is trying to understand her mother's past and uncover the source of a new outbreak. There's no confirmation yet whether this game will feature a new virus strain, but one thing is certain, Umbrella Corporation is still active in Raccoon City even today. So whether you're entering the Resident Evil franchise for the first time or have been a fan since the early days, Requiem marks the beginning of a new chapter where the past and present will collide. This game is expected to be packed with Easter eggs, so for the best experience, make sure you've played at least the Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3 remakes. Even though the list is small, let's take a look at some confirmed characters. As mentioned earlier, the developers have confirmed that Resident Evil Requiem's main protagonist will be Grace Ashcroft, an FBI intelligence analyst. This will be the first time in the Resident Evil franchise that the lead character is someone who is slightly introverted, fearful, and emotionally vulnerable. According to the game's director, the goal was to create a character who experiences horror just like the player, meaning when Grace is scared, the player feels that fear too. But that doesn't mean Grace is weak. She's trained like a proper agent in both firearms and combat. Plus, her role as an analyst will bring a strategic element to the gameplay. Throughout the game, Grace will gradually overcome her fears and grow emotionally, and that's exactly why Leon isn't in the lead role this time. The developers clearly stated that Leon's character doesn't suit the horror direction of the game because he's fearless. That would have killed the horror vibe and made it feel more like an action game, similar to Resident Evil 4. However, judging by recent trends in the franchise, we could still see at least 2 or even multiple playable characters, like Resident Evil 2 remake had Leon, Claire, and Sherry. Resident Evil 3 remake featured Jill and Carlos, and Village had Ethan and Chris. So even if Leon isn't the lead, an older version of him could still return to Raccoon City to help Grace. Another character who's indirectly confirmed is Alyssa Ashcroft, Grace's mother. Based on the developer's statements and clues from the reveal trailer, there's a strong chance that Alyssa might be playable in some flashback scenes, where we'll experience the original outbreak from her perspective. These flashbacks will naturally connect to Grace's investigation as she tries to uncover her mother's past. Overall, the character lineup has been kept grounded, emotional, and horror-focused, not filled with overpowered heroes, but with realistically vulnerable people struggling to survive. To help players better understand Resident Evil Requiem's gameplay concept, the developers used examples from Resident Evil 7 and the Resident Evil 4 remake. According to Capcom, Requiem's gameplay is designed to deliver an experience of addictive fear, a balanced mix of horror, tension, and classic Resident Evil vibes. This time, players will be able to control Grace Ashcroft in both first-person and third-person perspectives. This dual-mode feature was added to Resident Evil Village through a post-launch update, and it received a lot of positive feedback. According to the game's director, if you want to feel the tension up close and personal, go for the first-person mode. But if you prefer the classic over-the-shoulder view, like in RE2 and RE4, then third-person mode is available too. Switching between the two will be smooth and fluid, allowing players to experience every part of the gameplay based on their own comfort and preference. Now, what exactly is addictive fear? Think of it as a blend, not as disturbing and intense as RE7, but also not as action-heavy as the RE4 remake. It's a balanced combination where players will be scared yet hooked throughout the game. Grace's gameplay will include classic Resident Evil-style chase sequences, similar to a Tom and Jerry situation, where she's being hunted by a terrifying humanoid creature through tight, narrow hallways. This is meant to deliver the same kind of energy we saw with Mr. X, Lady Dimitrescu, or Jack Baker. In addition to combat, puzzles will play a major role in the game. They'll help maintain perfect pacing and keep the narrative engaging. Now, while we haven't seen much of the gunplay yet, the developers have hinted at the return of key survival mechanics, such as ammo conservation, strategic item usage, and a more grounded, tense combat system. Whenever we talk about an upcoming or unreleased game, the visual concept is rarely a part of the discussion, but the developers of Resident Evil 9 have made a point to highlight it. They've stated that the horror in Resident Evil Requiem won't be limited to just monsters and shadows. Instead, the visuals will be so realistic and detailed that the tension will extend beyond the screen itself. Special attention has been given to Grace Ashcroft's character model, so much so that even her hair became a major technical challenge. The developers revealed that they used a real-life wig to perfect Grace's hair physics, just to understand how individual strands behave under different lighting, movement, and wind conditions. You might be surprised to know that another Capcom team, the one behind Pragmata, was also involved in this project. They were working with the upgraded version of the RE engine, and thanks to its new strand technology, Grace's hair is rendered so naturally that it looks different in every scene. And it's not just her hair. Grace's entire character model, including her skin texture, eye details like the iris, and even the movement of her clothing, all reflect the power of this next-gen RE engine. Of course, Resident Evil games are already known for their exceptional use of lighting, shadow design, and atmospheric detail. So the question now is, how far will Capcom push that scale this time? We're honestly very excited to find out. The visuals have been made so immersive that even walking through a simple room will feel tense and anxiety-inducing. We did mention at the beginning that we wouldn't talk about leaks, but there's just one point that needs a bit of clarification. A while ago, an insider named Dusk Golem claimed that Resident Evil 9 was once planned to include open world and even multiplayer features. However, the studio reportedly canceled those plans back in 2022. Interestingly, the developers themselves later confirmed this and even showed some early gameplay footage to give an idea of how that concept might have looked. They had conducted several experiments with it, but eventually realized that this direction wasn't what their audience really wanted. Players just want a solid, single-player, story-driven experience, and that's exactly what they're going to deliver with this entry as well. However, the same insider once again claimed, right after the Spotlight Digital event, that Leon will be the protagonist of Resident Evil 9. And this wasn't just a casual statement. According to him, it's 100% confirmed. That means the director's earlier comment, saying that Leon doesn't fit as the protagonist for this kind of horror-focused game, might actually be a form of misdirection. The real plan, as suggested by the insider, could be that players start off as Grace for the horror-driven sections, and later, Leon enters the story, bringing with him full-on fan service and action. In other words, Grace will represent the slow, tense survival horror moments, while Leon will take over during the more intense, action-heavy sequences. This insider also believes that Leon's return will be officially confirmed in the upcoming Gamescom event. Finally, let's talk about the game's release date and platforms. The good news for fans is that the game is set to launch on the franchise's 30th anniversary, February 27th, 2026. And this time, there's no cross-gen confusion. Resident Evil Requiem is being developed as a full next-gen experience. That means it will launch exclusively on PS5, Xbox Series XS, and PC. It's definitely disappointing news for PS4 and Xbox One users, but Capcom has made it clear the game's scale, visuals, and mechanics are specifically designed for modern hardware. That means smoother frame rates, zero loading screens, and an immersive horror experience that just wouldn't be possible on older consoles. Capcom has also confirmed that the game will launch with full content, meaning no day one DLC or episodic format. So go ahead and mark your calendars, because on the 27th of February, 2026, a new emotional and terrifying journey with Grace Ashcroft begins, promising a fresh and powerful experience for Resident Evil fans. So that's everything we officially know so far about Resident Evil Requiem. I don't know about you, but personally, the trailer gave me some serious Silent Hill 2 remake vibes. To learn about the most controversial characters in gaming, including Ashley Graham from Resident Evil 4, click on the video on the right. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so I can keep bringing you more content like this.